And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Tuesday, February 20th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today, but before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, with that being said, let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. So, we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about Mike Evans and talk about him and the Bucs contract negotiations. They were kind of far apart. So, it looks like he is going to enter free agency. And, we'll talk about if he ends up, the possibility of him coming back to Tampa or going somewhere else. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about Seattle's quarterback situation because I know there was news on Geno Smith and his contract situation. So we'll talk about that and what the Seahawks' plans are at the quarterback position moving forward. Then in the third part of the show, we'll go over some players for each team that could be franchise tag candidates or candidates. So we'll get into that. And then in the final part of the show, we'll talk about Antonio Pierce's comments on, I believe it was Max Crosby's podcast, talking about how they could slow down the Chiefs and in particular stop or slow down Patrick Mahomes. So we'll get into that as well. So let's get right into the first topic, which is talking about Mike Evans and where he could possibly go if he does not return to Tampa. So, it looks like he's definitely going to be a free agent. The Buccaneers set a soft deadline for Monday to strike a deal with Evans, but both sides remained far apart. If Evans walks as a free agent, the Buccaneers will incur $12.2 million in dead cap towards their 2024 salary cap due to the restructuring of his contract. The team will lose $7.4 million in cap space without an agreement by Monday, so that's already passed. The Buccaneers and Mike Evans, they did try to work on, getting an extension done before the season, but that ended up not happening. So, yeah, I mean, this is going to be something to keep an eye on. And the Buccaneers do have, a decent amount of free agents. I mean, on both sides of the ball. On offense, you got Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield as well, who they're trying to bring back after the year that he had. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you got Antoine Winfield Jr., Devin White, Levante David. So yeah, there's some big names that are going to be free agents for the Buccaneers. Also, there's the possibility that the Buccaneers could franchise tag Antoine Winfield Jr. So we'll keep an eye on that. But I know there's teams out there that need receivers. Both New York teams need receivers. The Chiefs were a name that I saw as well. Maybe if they could possibly make a push for Mike Evans as well. Which, I mean, Mike Evans and Patrick Mahomes, that would be a nice connection if that ended up happening. But for me, I'm hoping that he does return to Tampa and Baker goes back to Tampa and they run it back. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. Mike Evans, though, I mean, he talk about consistency. Every year he's been in the league, he's had over 1,000 yards receiving. Last year, in Brady's last year, didn't have a ton of touchdowns. But this year, the touchdowns went up. So I just wanted to pull up his stats really quickly here. So, yeah, I mean, consistency. That's really the one word to describe him is consistency. Like I said, over 1,000 yards every single season he's been in the NFL. Yeah, last year with Tom Brady, 6 touchdown receptions. I mean, the previous 2 seasons he had 13 in 2020 with Brady, and then 14 with Brady once again in 2021. I mean, you go back and you look at the years where he was playing with Jameis Winston and Mike Glennon, those guys. Wait, was he? Yeah, he was with Glennon. He did play with Glennon for a little bit. Ryan Fitzpatrick. You know, 8 touchdowns in 2019, 8 touchdowns in 2018, 5 in 2017, 12 in 2016, 12 in 2014, and only 3 in 2015. But with Tom Brady and Baker Mayfield, I mean, like I said, 13 in 2020, 14 in 2021, only 6 in 2022. But in 2023, 79 receptions for 1,255 yards and 13 touchdowns. Had a great year. Again, this was a Buccaneers team that really wasn't expected to do much, and it was kind of a roller coaster of a season for them because they start off 3-1. I come out with that video on, are the Buccaneers legit? And then they go on that losing streak, and they're 4-7, and it looks like they're not going to go anywhere. And then they caught fire, and then they were able to get into the playoffs, even though it wasn't pretty at the end because then they lost to the Saints and then they only beat the Panthers 9-0. But give them credit. They won a playoff game. And listen, they had their chances against the Lions. Mike Evans had a good game. And Baker Mayfield had a good game as well. But, they came up a little bit short. And, their cap situation wasn't good because I believe it was because of Tom Brady with the cap hit. But now, they're in a good spot. And, they got to but they have to work on, in terms of the cap situation, but they got to work on now bringing back their free agents. If they go out and they franchise tag Antoine Winfield Jr., that helps. But then you just got to work on trying to bring back, Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield. Now, Mike Evans could look at the situation in Tampa and say, well, maybe he wants to win another championship. And, the Bucs right now, they're not a championship caliber team, even if they do bring back most of these guys. So maybe Mike Evans says, all right, well, I'm going to go somewhere where I have a better chance of doing that. Which, you bring up Kansas City. I think Baltimore was another team as well. We'll see. It's either he stays in Tampa and he stays loyal, or he says, you know what, I want to try to win another ring, and he goes somewhere else. Listen, the Chiefs. Listen, we talk about the Chiefs receiving core. You bring in Mike Evans. That really helps. To put it in simple terms, that helps. So, it's something that. Listen, we're in the off season now, so there's gonna be so many different storylines and things to keep an eye on. But that's just one thing to look at. And the Bucs, they have a lot of decisions that they have to make. And the division's going to be better next year. If the Falcons can figure out the quarterback situation, they're going to be better. The Panthers, they're not going to be, they can't be any worse, right? You would think they're going to be a little bit better, but still, but I think the Falcons you got to worry about, and then the Saints, listen, how they finished off the season is encouraging, but you got to see what happens next year. And I know I talked about, teams that are rising and falling, and I know the Saints were in the falling category in the article I was looking at because of their cap situation. But and the roster's getting older, and I still don't really like Dennis Allen as the head coach. I think they should have moved off of him, but they didn't. They decided not to. But yeah, if Derek Carr plays like he did, the last 2 games of the year, carry that over into next year, yeah, that's going to be a problem. So, so the Bucs, like I said, they have some free agents that they got some stuff they got to figure out. And then they go from there. But yeah, Mike Evans has put together a Hall of Fame career. And, Tampa is the only place that he's known, but it could be possible that he's playing elsewhere next year, because, again, I don't look at the Bucs as a championship contender, but at the same time, that's the team you did win a Super Bowl with, and, that's the only place you've known. So maybe you just say, you know what, I'm going to stick around. It's not like the Bucs, they run it back next year and, have a nice draft, bring in some other free agents. They could be a better team next year, especially, if Baker Mayfield plays how he did, not in the middle part of the season, but, the beginning and, towards the end of the season. they could still be a team that makes a playoff push, but I don't think they are, championship caliber. But again, it's just something to keep an eye on. I mean, again, the Bucks exceeded expectations in 2023. And I was really happy with the performance of Baker Mayfield and how he was able to play in 2023. And hopefully, Tampa is his home for the foreseeable future. And he has a lot of successful years in Tampa. But I think a big part of his success was having Mike Evans. They worked well together. I mean, first game of the year, Mike Evans had a touchdown. So right off the bat, and the Bucks won the game. They upset Minnesota in Minnesota, which is well, I mean, I shouldn't say it's a hard place to play. I think like 2017, that was a tough place to play, but now it's not as tough. I mean, look at the Giants. They went in there in 2022 and won a playoff game. So, but yeah, still, I mean, didn't expect the Bucks to win the game. But yeah, right from the beginning, Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield had a connection, and that carried throughout the season and into the playoffs. So, you kind of hope that they stick together. I mean, they still got Chris Godwin there. Rashad White had a good season. I mean, the Bucks have some things they need to address. Um, you know, um, both on the defensive side and on the offensive side. I think you want to get someone that could complement Rashad White. And there's some running backs out there that maybe they could consider bringing in. But again, that's all speculation. But I mean, we'll just have to see. But yeah, the Bucks, they got to re-sign Mike Evans. Baker Mayfield, got to bring him back. And we'll see what they do on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, Antoine Winfield Jr., like I said, it's possible they franchise tag him. But then you also, like I said, you have Levante David, Devin White. We'll see if they end up bringing them back as well. They obviously key pieces for the Super Bowl run they had back in 2020. Levante David's been there forever. So, again, just something to keep an eye on. But, next year, division's going to be more competitive. Really, I mean, if the Falcons bring in the right quarterback, that team could be the best team in the division. Because that's probably what held them back. I mean, they split with the Bucks this year. And, they could have very easily won both games. So, and they split with the Saints as well. The Saints, I know they destroyed them the final game of the season. But, yeah, I mean, listen, the Falcons got a lot of playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. And the defense is improving. They brought in, I know they brought in Jesse Bates over from Cincinnati, which was a good move. I honestly really don't know what the kind of season he had, but again, he was good with the Bengals. I think he was the one that picked off Derek Carr in the first game for the pick six. So, yeah, I mean, the division's going to be more competitive. I mean, even the Panthers, I think, will be somewhat better. I mean, I don't know, but we'll see. So you got to worry about that. The conference as a whole is going to be better. I talk about this, when talking about, other teams in the NFC. This conference will be better. Again, it's not as loaded as it once was, but it's, it's going to be better. So, but fortunately for the Bucks, they were able to win the division. But the division's going to be tougher. Conference is going to be tougher. So, it's important that they try to get back most of their guys, and then they try to add on to that. So, we'll see what happens. But, yeah, that's pretty much it when talking about this. Let me know what you guys think. Is Mike Evans, do you think he's going to stick with Tampa? Are they going to be able to work out an extension? Or is he going to be playing elsewhere next year? Which, yeah, it's kind of possible. If they haven't really been able to come to an agreement and they're far apart on negotiations, yeah, it doesn't look good. So we'll see what ends up happening. So when we come back from our first break of the show, we're going to we will talk about the Seahawks quarterback situation, what I think they should do. Because it's possible Geno Smith, could be the starter next year, or maybe they bring in somebody else, bring competition. Who know? We'll see. But yeah, that is what we will talk about when we come back from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.